welcome into another episode of the Colorado Craft Podcast by Mile High Bourbon and Rye. My name is Zach, and I am the host of the show. If this is your first time listening, this is a show about everything Colorado craft. So we're going to talk if it's made in Colorado, if it's designed in Colorado, if the pictures are taken in Colorado, then I probably want to talk to you about it. And today we have Owen here, Owen from Locke and CO Distillery, with their Aspen-aged lineup. So, Owen, how's it going?
Doing great, Zach. Thanks for having me. Excited to share some whiskey, have some fun, and talk things Colorado.
Yeah, really, really pumped for this, for sure. So, I guess let's... actually, before we really dive too much into it, quick shout-out to Stoney's Bar and Grill in Denver, where we're hanging out, having a couple of beers here, enjoying the atmosphere. They were nice enough to set us up in kind of a little private bar spot for the evening recording. So, cheers to Stoney. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Stoney's. Lots of good memories here. If you know, you know. Curtis, Jeremy, Chris, Frisch, all you guys. A lot of fun here. We're vast.
All the friends.
That's right.
Listening to the podcast.
No
Bring
doubt.
back some memories. Awesome. Well, Owen, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a sixth-generation Coloradan. Family came out in the 1870s, started mining in Salida, BV area, and never left. My 4 times great-grandfather had one of the first liquor stores in downtown Denver. So it's roughly like F and Holiday Street before the fire happened. So one of the first liquor stores and general stores downtown. There's pictures of it in the Colorado History Museum, which is great. But it did burn down. It would have been a great spot for a distillery. We're not getting chased down here.
That's just the wonderful sounds of downtown Denver.
This is the color and culture that we love and respect down here. But yeah, so Colorado native. My business partner, Rick Talley, who I went to high school with, longtime friend, best buddy. He's another native. So we grew up together, went to Littleton High School. A little fun. So
okay, awesome.
Yep. And we started home brewing beer when I was 15 years old.
Great time.
It was a great time. It was a great way to make friends, right? So started home brewing beer before I could drive. Rick was a little older, but my folks were okay with it because of the family history of Colorado having one of the first liquor stores. And then Grandpa on the other side of the family made bathtub gin during Prohibition. So when I started home brewing beer, they're like, cool science. I'm sure that beer tastes great. Get the hell out of here type of situation. So. Again, we're safe, we're sound. So started homebrewing beer in high school, kept homebrewing beer. I went to CU for undergrad, and then Rick and I connected in grad school at the University of Denver, where his buddy worked for Jim Beam.
Okay.
So we got hired by Jim Beam to kind of go around, do tastings, and do sampling events all throughout Colorado. So we got kind of paid to learn about Booker's, Baker's, Knob Creek, their whole portfolio. But we had this homebrew background, so kind of when we were done with that experience in 2010, we bought a still and started making whiskey in the garage.
Okay, awesome. That's really awesome.
That's a good time. Again, it's a way to make friends.
Right? That's a heck of a way to start off with that kind of experience. So what moved you from brewing beer into distilling whiskey?
Yeah, so good question. The beer was kind of like the fun thing to do. Again, 1995, when I was 15, that dates me a little bit, but was really into just kind of the fermented arts. Like, my dad took me to a brew shop that opened up in the mid-90s where you could make it on site. It was just really cool and kind of a fun experience, kind of sharing that with my dad. And he was always a part of helping us out and doing those things. And then the whiskey, we're just like, okay, you got to make good beer to make good whiskey. And we've been playing with beer for years in Colorado, so... Bought a still. We actually bought one from Western Kentucky called Hillbilly Stills.
Nice.
A nice, 23-gallon, 6-foot, 4-plate copper still. Really efficient one. Not your really baby starter, but a starter. You see a lot, actually locally for, R&D stills.
Okay.
And so we started using that in the garage. And a lot of people will say, the first time they make moonshine, it's, the best moonshine recipe in the world. I totally scorched my moonshine the first time. Because I was filtering kind of differently for beer and just burned it and it came out. I'm like, oh my God, I ruined everything with day one. But again, this was hobby time. This was fun to do in the garage.
Yep.
Just making friends and causing trouble. So got better at kind of filtration, and one of the places that really helped me was Leopold Brothers.
Okay, awesome.
They're like original location. Scott was there, and I came from beer, which is closed air fermentation, and going to their facility and talking about their experience in Michigan, then kind of open the craft brewery, and then come back to Colorado to do spirits. They had open air fermentation, and that was just like clicked in my head, the conversion from like actually how do you ferment for whiskey.
Gotcha.
And so that was like a big like aha moment. This was kind of like pre-Uber, and we went into their facility, the original facility. It was like 20 samples. Like, we got to get a cab home from here. Like, this is crazy. Like 5 types of whiskey, and then flavored whiskey, and then the absinthe on top. You're like, oh God, we got to get out of here. But it was so much fun. But that really changed kind of my perspective on how to ferment for spirits versus beer. Similar but different yeast, different strategies on how to do that. So kind of used that in the garage, and then started kind of playing through our own still. We went to Denver Beer Company.
Yep, okay.
Friends of ours, and we got some cans of beer that weren't full fill.
Gotcha.
So like 11-ounce beers. We opened them up, carbonated off, so their beer waste was like R&D for our whiskey, kind of beer schnapps.
Nice.
So just like learning how to run the still, how to take cuts, do those things. So we would get like 60 mason jars. And we'd line them up like every 2 minutes and go through and be like, all right, my palate says the head stopped at jar 15, the hearts began, and then they stopped at jar 40. Okay. And we compare that to kind of our distilling logs. It was kind of like where science meets palate.
Gotcha.
Right? So that was kind of like the baby steps of us getting into like actually making whiskey.
So I really like that idea there where the science meets palate, because I hear all the time, and I love it, is that distilling's not just pure science. Like, you get the guys that have like a biochemistry degree and all of that, and it's obviously hugely important in what you do, but there's an art aspect to it, and that kind of feel for what it is, and that having the palate to pick that up.
And I think that's like, it's kind of like cooking. Like, you can go be a culinary expert and go to culinary school, or you can learn from grandma.
Yep.
Right? And both can make great dishes in that way. And so it's kind of like the science and practice versus the history and just your palate. You're kind of going through and building out as you go. So it is a process.
Yeah.
You know, again, first time I ran the still was not a pretty sight. Like, this is no joke. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So one of the, I think, kind of flagship key pieces of Locke and Co. obviously is the aspen aged aspect of it.
Yep.
When did you decide to put an aspen tree in your whiskey?
It's a great question. Great question. We always go, what would a wood chunk do, right? So in the fall of 2010, we took a mason jar of moonshine rye. Again, we'd worked for Jim Beam. Wanted to make whiskey we wanted to drink, so we were making a rye, flaked crystal, malted rye, two-row barley, and golden oats. So we had this big complex mash bill. We're making moonshine in the garage, but all high-rise stuff. And then we took a mason jar of rye up to Fairplay, Colorado.
Okay.
So my wife's family has a cabin up there they've had since the late 70s. It's about 30 acres with nothing but aspen trees. But it's an old cabin, so we shut it down every fall for the winter, but there's nothing but aspen trees on the property.
Awesome.
Right? If you can see, if you're watching, the video highlights of me holding an aspen stave. So essentially we're drinking around the fire, having a good time, threw a chunk of charred aspen from the fire into that mason jar of moonshine rye and left it on a southern-facing windowsill. So hot days, cool nights, wood worked all winter.
Yep.
Came back in spring, like, really glad we were drinking.
Yep.
Moral of the story, drink by the fire with friends. And
it's the best way to do it.
It's the best way. Safety first, too, lots of people.
Yes.
So we took a sip off that jar in the spring. We're like, really glad we were drinking. This is good stuff. But as you've heard and seen from other people, aspen's too soft of a wood to make a barrel.
Yep.
So it's got to float in the whiskey. So we decided we were going to pour the whiskey out of the barrel into big, large, like 300-gallon stainless steel totes and tanks, and then drop in a cross-cut of the aspen wood rather than a stave cut.
Okay.
So for us, that's super important. That's just kind of how we do it, is we align the natural cell structure. So if we pour whiskey on the top, it'll flow right through.
Naturally goes directly through.
The xylem phloem cell structure, I had to look it up. I didn't know. But instead of cutting against the grain like how you make a barrel stave, if it's going to float in there, let's make a big filter.
Okay.
So a big part of the R&D was how to cure this aspen wood.
Yep.
You've cut an aspen tree, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So that first cut on aspen is pretty bitter.
Yes.
Right? And so we try to cure these trees for about 4 months, still bitter, 8 months, still bitter. So it's about 12 months to the wind, the rain, the snow up in fair play.
Okay.
We sand off all the bark because there's bitter notes in the bark. Then we char each piece on the Weber grill. Then it floats in the whiskey for 8 months.
Okay.
So about 20 months total of aspen kind of curing and then aging the whiskey.
Okay.
And we do that all by hand. Right?
Right.
We can't buy that. No Cooper is
No, nobody's got aspen.
So we cut that aspen, we cure it in logs, and then we have these kind of gardening platforms. It almost looks like a chain link fence, about 3 feet off the ground, where these discs will rest on during the summer.
Okay.
We'll rotate them over so they get sun on both sides. We use UV rays to really help break down the cell structure, which are going to kind of concentrate the sugars that naturally occur in the wood.
Okay,
Right?
awesome.
After it, we'll wind the rain, kind of leach everything out so everything's clean, there's no sap in there. We'll char it up and caramelize those sugars. So this is a big flavor filter.
Yep.
So that's going to float in the whiskey, it's going to make it smooth. That's why our 90 proof gets called like the gateway rye, because it's so smooth. But the caramelized sugars add that light brown sugar cinnamon note that you've tasted through our whiskeys.
Yep.
That kind of key ingredient for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's actually really cool how that's where you're getting that sweet note from. Because rye obviously is known for being hotter, it's spicier, it's not always called smooth, like you said, and the aspen staves that sweetness on it. We'll actually talk kind of about this guy. I believe this is the flagship one sitting right here.
Flagship single barrel.
Okay, flagship's here. So we'll actually start here.
Yep.
Again, as I said, we're at Stoney's. Unfortunately, we can't open these bottles for the video for you guys. We have tried them, and I highly recommend you try them as well. I believe that Owen would agree with that assessment there.
Try them all, yes.
But this guy here, just sampling, you said it's the gateway rye.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying by that. It's got that, you still get the kind of peppery notes, you get that cinnamon, you get those rye flavors, but it's so sweet. There's so much of that like brown sugar, caramely kind of bourbon-like flavor that comes through it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We feel, so we're 95% rye, right? That classic 95.5, which is normally big flavor, big burn.
Yep.
Right? And so there's nuances and sweetness within that burn, and some people love that big burn, and we're rye guys, so we love that too, but that aspen just rounds out the edge.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of how he is, like, more filtration and then the sweetness on the linger. So it's just a little bit more rounded. Again, we think cutting the aspen wood the way we do really helps.
Yeah.
Kind of filter that. So that's kind of our uniqueness that makes it the gateway rye. People will come up to us at events and be like, I'm a bourbon drinker, I don't really like rye. I'll be like, no problem, give us a shot. And they're like, I guess I do like rye.
Right.
And they're like, perfect, awesome, we're doing our job. This is great.
Well, that's the way you branch out too. Like that's, I love stuff like that specifically because it gets you into something a little bit out of your comfort zone, but you're not diving so far that you're like, oh, I'm never trying that again.
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm a little odd. So the first time I ever tried a scotch, like a truly smoky scotch, was the Lafroig 10-year.
Okay.
Which is just a peat smoke bomb.
Peat bomb.
Yep. And like, I ended up loving it, but most people are like, no, I can't go straight into that. I gotta work.
Right. That is not the typical path.
Yep.
No. You open that bottle and the whole room will smell like peat.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's interesting you say that because like how you get into whiskey is such a unique story for everybody, right? We do see like, if you're like me and caused too much trouble in college, like started drinking bottom shelf whiskey and then got into Jack and Jim and then into good bourbons and you kind of crossed over to ryes.
Yep.
Right? That's kind of how we see the evolution. Now, ryes are getting more increase in kind of visibility with cocktails and the mixology movement.
Yeah.
That spice note kind of holds up against sweetness. Some people jump into ryes a little bit more quickly, but generally that's kind of what we see. Whereas your experience going peat bomb first, scotch is like, it's not the normal path.
Well, it was crazy because I was all like, I thought bourbon was the only one I really liked. As I started to get into whiskey, that's where it was. And my wife, girlfriend at the time, she's like, I love this smoky peat. You got to try this.
Totally.
And she goes, it's like you're taking a sip of a campfire.
Totally.
And it just, sipping whiskey around a fire was what went into my mind. That's got to be why it just tagged instantly into goodness. But if you're not like me, meaning you're not kind of a crazy person, and you're more of a bourbon drinker, I definitely think this is a great step, like you said, because you get those those rye notes that I'm a huge fan of.
Sure.
I love that pepper. I love the cinnamon. It's just absolutely blast.
It's really a lot of fun, and I would say the aspen, the main thing that it does is that light brown sugar, that cinnamon, but there is almost like a grassy earth tone to it, like a little toffee, that some Scotch drinkers really latch on to.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I don't know, it's not like a green note or anything like that. It's more of an herbal tone that they're like, oh, not like a peaty Scotch, maybe more like a Highland or something like that.
Okay.
That they can kind of like be like, ooh, I like that from Scotch world. I didn't know that was available in the rye world.
Yep.
Right? And so that aspen wood has just, people are just like, what does aspen taste like? Right? Like, it's just like, sure, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Right? So once they're like, oh, it's not just a marketing gimmick, it actually imparts flavor, I can taste it.
Yeah.
The biggest thing we get feedback on, especially on this 90 proof, is smells like, tastes like going for a hike in the Rocky Mountains.
Which, the first time I ever got to try one of the bottles, it was, so, the Aspens, and there's one other distillery in Colorado that's doing a lot with Aspen, obviously, 291.
291. Hogback's got some too.
Yep, they did that, which one was it with the Aspen? They did the bourbon?
Oaks and Aspen bourbon. I think.
That was, I got a bottle of that one, and that one turned out really good
They're
too.
doing great stuff.
But I agree, you definitely get, and it's almost like the fall, like it brings me right to fall. Like you can taste and smell out of the glass what the air tastes and smell like when you walk through like a cool aspen grove in the fall.
Like
I
a cool aspen grove, right? Like
Yep.
that cool earth and soil coming through.
Yep.
It's definitely how it is. And so people ask a lot, like, we'll get into some of these other products, but like, how do you choose the aspen? Right? So we started cutting it. My brothers-in-law were like, are you going to clear cut the whole family property? What are you doing, buddy? You know? So I'm like, no, I think last year we cut like 15 trees off of 30 acres. There's big groves.
Okay.
We could cut more for like fire mitigation.
Yep.
But we're looking for like freshly wind-fallen trees.
Okay.
So ones that are not fully alive and ones that aren't dead, but like good, decent quality, but they're depleting the grove of nutrients.
Yeah. They're sucking up pieces. That's actually why we had to cut the aspen in our backyard. Is it was sitting there, mostly dead, but sucking up all the life from the trees next to it. Yep.
And in that aspen grove, you know, they're all connected by the root system, right? So
Yep.
it's depleting resources. So it's really a sustainable process.
Okay, that's
so
awesome.
You're like culling the forest so that grove can be more healthy and almost spread out, which then helps cross-pollinate the other aspen groves down valley. Beautiful, right? And so when we cut these, we also use vegetable-based bar and chain oil in the chainsaw. Okay. Buy it from Still. It's a green bottle, vegetable-based. So no petrol's getting on this.
Awesome.
Right? And so we wanted to make these safe as we could get them. Again, hand cutting, hand charring each one and going that route. It's like such a replenable resource, especially up in Fairplay. Right?
Yeah.
So it's every time we do an event, somebody's like, I got an aspen tree in my backyard. You want to go cut it? They're like, yeah, it grows like a weed sometimes, but using something iconic like aspen wood and just kind of stumbling into it around the fire has made us kind of unique in what we do.
Yeah, definitely kind of stands out there. Before we go any further,
Yes.
especially since we're on Fair Play, I do just want to take a quick moment to shout out the presenting sponsor for this podcast, in Fair Play, actually. So if you spend any time up there and you like pizza, then stop into Kickin' Ass Mountain Pizza. They're parked right behind Snitching Lady Distillery. They're open Wednesday through Sunday, afternoons. Everything is handmade to order right there in front of you. Weekly specials, which are always fun. If you watch the show Bob's Burgers, or have you seen it? So,
Absolutely.
you know, he's got the burger of the day. It's always a fun pun.
Yep.
They've always got like a fun pizza up there.
It's true.
Absolutely.
So we go to Fair Play all the time.
Yep.
We go to getting the aspen wood, getting the kids up there. Had so many pizzas from there. It's delicious stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely
stuff.
excellent. They do wings as well. They've got the wood-fired oven right there, parked out, and they're open through the winter this year. So usually they've had to close down with the weather, but they're actually going to be open through the winter. So if you're up in the Fair Play area, check out some beautiful aspen trees and make sure you snag yourself a pizza from Kickin' Ass Mountain Pizza.
A little aspen pizza, a little aspen whiskey.
Let's do it. Let's see if we can get them to do an
That'd be
aspen
awesome.
pizza. Yeah, something aspen.
We'll give them some
themed.
aspen wood, and they can put it in the smoker and the wood fired
In the
up.
wood fire, yep. Burn
Maybe
up
just
an
a little
aspen.
bit.
Yeah.
We don't want to bust the
Doesn't
oven
need to go
for
too
it.
much,
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's all hardwood. They're burning
Right,
in there,
right,
so that
right,
might
exactly.
be. Yep.
We'll
That
do it on the side.
could be a cool little.
Little collab.
Yeah.
Little collab. Little
I
Fair Play love.
absolutely see
Yep,
that.
yep.
Absolutely. So let's get into your barrel strength one here.
Let's do it.
So, I mean, obviously barrel strength, but tell us a little bit more about this bottle. And
So super excited about this. So we started with the flagship, that's 90 proof. 2 years and 30-gallon oak barrels, a blend of char levels 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then the aspen wood finishing for 8 months. Single barrels, because we use different char levels, we can offer different char levels of single barrel, again, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Uncut, unfiltered, so that's 3 years in these 30-gallon oak barrels, 8 months with the aspen, and we're averaging 128 to 132 in proof.
okay,
So we put the whiskey in at 123. We lose about 7 to 8 gallons after 2 years, after 3 years for the single barrel, losing about 11 gallons, right? So a lot to the Angel's share, concentrating that whiskey, getting that flavor. You can kind of see in this bottle, a little flecks of char at the bottom.
just a bit. It's
Right?
also definitely darker.
Right,
than
you
the
can see
flagship,
how dark, it's like the
significant,
concentrated
yep.
flavor, but that extra year in the oak has more of those caramels, vanillas from that oak.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's been out maybe about a year or so now. Small quantities. Each single barrel is about 17 cases, 16 cases. So
So real small.
real
quantities.
small stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Awesome, though. I mean, like you said, concentrated of the flagship.
Yep.
When we were able to sample this one, it was absolutely that. Like, you got the spice came out, especially the cinnamon. I believe it was this one when we were trying them, that it was like almost the end of a red hot candy on the back
Yep.
end of it. Like, just a lot of
With a
that.
hot tamale,
Yep,
right?
hot
Right,
tamale,
right.
exactly. That spicy but sweet cinnamon. Like, definitely has that candy note, but tons of the spice. And then the notes that, again, come from that aspen are just awesome.
It's one of the things I love about this product is we like to play guess the proof.
Okay.
Like, pour a sample and you tell me. And I told you it was 130 before we started. You're like, there's no way that's 130,
Yeah, it
right?
did not drink like it.
So if you're into cast strength whiskeys, this is definitely one to find out because you'll drink it and be like, that's 110, that's 115 tops. And at 130 proof, it's really smooth, really flavorful, and it holds up well. So we're excited about this one for sure.
Absolutely awesome. And they're all single barrel releases for these?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Fantastic. I know you've got them in a couple of stores.
So the single barrels, so we're pretty much just in Colorado, this distribution. In fact, when our flagship won gold 3 years in a row at San Francisco World Spirits, they called us and they're like, you're one of the smallest producers to do this. We're like, cool. And they're like, yeah, you're a nano distillery.
Yeah.
And we're like, cool, what's a nano distillery? So
Yep.
San Francisco World Spirits standard of releasing under 100 barrels a year. So our first batch of whiskey was 34 barrels, then 64. All of this is still under 90 barrels.
Okay.
So still super small stuff. So
Yep.
everything we do is kind of allocated to the small, but we're primarily just in Colorado. We do have like an online retailer where you can ship bottles, but the single barrels are now pretty readily available throughout Colorado. So if you have a liquor store or somewhere you normally frequent, your favorite bar, they can pick up 2 or 3 bottles pretty easily through our distribution partners.
Awesome. That's great because, stuff like that, sometimes when you get those limited releases, it's hard to get people to try it. But if you've got the distribution through the state,
That's right.
and then you guys can pick up,
Yeah.
find your local little liquor store, support Colorado from literally the top of the process to the bottom
To
of
the
the
bottom.
process.
And so that's one thing, like, we do single barrels for a store. Like, they'll do a barrel pick,
Yep.
right, obviously. But our distribution company will have a single barrel.
Okay.
And they'll sell 2 or 3 bottles to smaller shops. Kind of spread that love and have more people, more approachable products.
Awesome.
And that's kind of, we'll get into that in a second, but that's kind of our mantra in our community is like how we can include more people
Yeah.
in what we're doing. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of
That's
fun.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Really cool. But the single barrel is one that I definitely enjoyed, but I think as much as I do like the new one that should hopefully be on shelf soon, I think my personal favorite of the evening was this one.
So this is a special one. Our friend, shout out to John Schlego and Adamo Winery out of the Rhino area in Denver. So this is a collaboration with them. So it's oak barrels, aspen wood, and then we put the whiskey into a 59-gallon Nebbiolo red wine barrel for 13 more months.
So you got over a year sitting in that red wine
Over
barrel.
a year. And it's a nice European barrel, brand new. It was only used once for the wine. So one
Okay.
used for wine. So it was just something totally different than our flagship and our single barrel. We wanted to create something totally different. Again, all we do is whiskeys, so creating that difference with those barrels, right?
Yep.
So that red wine, kind of that herbal stone fruit coming through. It's 103.5, so not super hot, but pretty full-bodied and just really complex out there.
So I've seen plenty of whiskeys finished in like different wine. I mean, obviously you get a lot of the fortified wine. You got a port finish, you got the sherry finish. Those are popular, and I love that kind of stuff. But Nebbiolo is not one that I have seen. Why Nebbiolo?
Why Nebbiolo? So the great team at Adamo. So we went over to Adamo Winery. Again, if you haven't stopped by there, the food's great, wine's even better, but they have a great wine club, which is awesome. But sweet. So we went over there and we brought the flagship and some single barrel. And we got, I don't know, maybe 20 glasses Glencairns together. We would blend about 40 mLs of whiskey to 10 milliliters of their wines.
Okay.
So we did their Cabernet, their Barolo, the Nebbiolo, and so we mixed a little bit of wine for the whiskey, and that was kind of how we started.
Okay.
And then we did another round, once we kind of filtered down which wines we liked. We got down to the Nebbiolo, and then we would do 10 milliliters with the whiskey, 20 milliliters. So you have 50 milliliters, and you're just kind of blending more and more wine in there to see how long. That will give you like a range of like how long we should age that in the wine barrel, right? So just playing with them, and that's one of the best things we do, is going through these single barrels, adding water and blending things together. That's the most fun thing that we absolutely do, the creative side of it. So working with great people, Taylor over at Adamo, John, and just their Nebbiolo was delicious. They're like, yeah, we'd really like to use the Nebbiolo, but it just happened to be the best thing that blended with that rye spice. And nobody else was doing it, so let's do something different.
Yeah, and I'm all for it. I mentioned this to you before, we got the show rolling here before we got together. When it's like something off the wall, that's my favorite way to go.
Sure.
Because, I mean, heck, nobody was really doing whiskey with corn until came to the United States. All of a sudden, boom, here we go. Nobody was doing, everything's born off of kind of off the wall ideas, and I love that. It was really, really earthy. Had a lot of that quality to it. Definitely kind of the red fruit notes. You can tell that it was influenced by a wine cask for sure.
Absolutely. And even as we look at them, you can see that like red hue.
Just a red tint to it.
Right, a little tint, a little hue. It's just something totally different than the first two.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's been fun. And like you said, we do have some ports and cherries and some other things coming out, but just to have something totally different.
Yeah.
And nobody's seen kind of really out there. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
That's a blast. And I mean, a Colorado winery too. So again, we're sticking with that from top to bottom. Everything is Colorado, which fits for a Colorado craft podcast.
Exactly. It's one of the things that we put on our bottles too, is we call it kindred spirits.
Okay, beautiful.
So in Colorado, drinking around a campfire, having a good time, we're kindred spirits. You might not see each other for a while, but you always catch up, and it's like you never left.
Yeah.
So all these relationships kind of having more fun around the campfire.
That's beautiful. Yep. Yeah. No, that bottle was awesome. Absolutely a blast. So I know you guys don't have this still yourself that you're doing this from, so you're going through another Colorado company to make all your spirits. So again, we're keeping it all Colorado. You guys are creative process, mash bill, everything. You've got that all hammered into them.
Correct. So the only still we own is the 6 foot 23 gallon we started the garage with. Right? So nice big one, but that allowed us to kind of get into the aspen wood, and essentially about 5-6 years of learning how to cure the aspen wood to get that correct. We had a bunch of friends ask us like every Christmas, I need 20-30 jars for Christmas, and that's when we're like, all right, let's see if we can actually make this aspen wood a thing.
Okay.
And so we found a local partner. They were in Aurora. They moved down to Colorado Springs. Everything's aged there, bottled there. They do source from MGP, or they make their own. It just depends on what you're looking for.
Okay.
And then everything's aged down there. So all the oak aging, the barrels, the aspen wood, the bottling, and then we sell it around Colorado.
So you guys ship the aspen discs down to them to finish that off in?
Correct. Well, we just bring it down.
Oh, sweet.
We do it. So we're down there all the time. We just don't own the place.
You're literally just...
Yes.
Yeah, you're doing everything by hand when it comes to these aspen trees.
Exactly.
That's kind of amazing, actually. That's got to be a heck of a lot of work.
It's a lot of fun. Get my kids involved now. They're helping turn the discs over and load up the trucks and everything like that. So it's fun and play up in Fairplay.
That's awesome. Right? Yep.
A little fishing, a little whiskey, a little aspen.
Yep. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely spectacular. So then, keeping on that kind of just everything Colorado here, we've got this one with the new label.
Yep.
Start off by telling me a little bit about the label on the front, because obviously completely different from your other ones.
Completely different. So a little different shape, still that flask shape, but big brown trout on there. So we're calling it our Big Catch Bourbon. This is a collaboration with our friends at Repu Water. So Corinne and Garrison, the co-founders, been friends with them just through fly fishing and being on the water and being around town. So talked to Garrison. He's a great artist. He came up with this great concept for us, hand-drawn art, just kind of showcasing Colorado. Like, we're using our local roots, another great company to make kind of collaborative experience on this bourbon. So super excited about it. It's not on shelves quite yet. We're hoping any week now. Just waiting for governor approval.
Got to wait for that government stamp of approval on these. Right. So hopefully by the time this comes out, because I don't know exactly what day, we're about one episode a month at the moment.
Sure.
So maybe by the time it comes out, then this one will be available. If not, very shortly afterwards.
Exactly.
Just in time for the holiday, it sounds like.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Yes.
Excellent. Well, and then this one is a bourbon versus your rye. So
right, the first one we talked about, the flagship, the single barrel, and the Nebbiolo finish were all 95% rye, 5 barley. This bourbon is a blend of 4 barrels, all 75% corn, 3 of which had high wheat, so 21% wheat, 4 barley. The other one had 21% rye, so kind of a high rye barrel and 3 high wheat barrels. And then we blended those together and then finished it with a little of that rye spice from our aspen wood that we've used to age the other products. So super fun, unique. It's got our signature, our fingerprints all over it. A little bit more approachable price point out there, but we're super excited about it.
Yeah, and sampling this one, the little bit that I got to try of that, it's, again, also, there's something magical about using the aspen in this, I feel like. And I really do feel the aspen is it's kind of what makes it very much a Colorado whiskey.
Totally.
Like it throws it, it's totally out of left field, changes it to be something uniquely from this state, which I absolutely love. So aspens go, they grow elsewhere, but when you picture an aspen seed in the fall, you're picturing Aspen, Colorado, or Fairplay, or any of the mountain towns.
The Rocky Mountains, like you said, like walking through a cool hike, the leaves changing, like it's just so iconic.
Yep.
That we get to use that and be a part of that. And in the future we might have some products without the aspen wood, but right now that's just a part of who we are. Because drinking around the fire, that's what we wanted to do, right?
Yep.
And so you'll see on our bottles like this plus sign. And the plus sign in Locke and Co. We think of Locke and Co. as like Locke and Company, like when we were growing up in Colorado, like having company over for dinner.
Yep.
Right? Like having people over, Locke and community. So we want to just add people to the experience of us, like how we started drinking around the fire.
Yeah.
Right? So having this flask-shaped bottle, it fits in my back pocket as a flask, not all pants.
All right.
But to carry around at 750, like we were growing up skiing and fishing with a little flask on us, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of how it worked out. So we want to add people to the experience of Locke and Co. So we highlight that plus sign in everything we do to join people kind of around our campfire that is Locke and Co.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, so, sitting around the fire for sure. I'm like, your perfect spot then. Perfect spot, perfect time of year to have a pour of whatever whiskey it might happen to be. But what's like the ideal environment for you to be sitting? The absolute go-to, I choose this over everything else.
Great question. So, the cool nights of the summer, you're talking like August, September, after a day of fly fishing for me, would be where it is around a campfire. Typically that would be our Fairplay cabin where it is. There's a couple places outside of Steamboat that I would call perfect.
Okay.
But kind of just around people and talking and doing that, I think is my favorite place to do it. having the conversation. I think that's something that we're all starting to get back to.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it's like we've had whiskey on by ourselves or doing virtual things, but having that actual conversation of hosting Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Or doing things like that it's all kind of coming back into our community and just having that celebration of like, have you tried this?
Yep.
Hey, check this out. And I think that's part of like just open conversation and having fun.
So that's awesome because I'm 100% in the same way. If it's like it's almost more about the having people directly around you with it
totally.
versus the specific location that you're in.
Right, you know? I totally agree.
Yep.
Totally agree.
It makes it completely opens up. Like, I think it makes everything taste better too. It's just the whole thing. It really does. Like sitting there sampling stuff. You can try stuff on your own. You can go do things. But once you start talking to somebody, it really, especially someone who enjoys it.
Right, and it draws you back. The next time you have a sip of a whiskey, you're like, oh, I remember that last time we had a good conversation.
Yep.
As you mentioned that you got into scotch, that peated scotch reminds you of a campfire. It's this like deep, sensual kind of memory experience that like brings you back to that old experience. So that's what we're about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about, was get you to tell some of your story, let people know kind of what Locke and Co is all about, tell them about your beautiful lineup of whiskeys that you got here.
So
even brought props for us.
I have a prop. So people are like, why are you carrying a cheese wheel around? Yep. If you feel that, you feel how light that is.
Yeah, that weighs nothing.
Right? So like being kind of like a amateur cooperage, right?
Yep.
So like we lose 60% of the weight on this stuff, so it's all done by hand and all having fun in all Colorado. It's just fun to share that story. We could talk about it all day. And you're from Colorado, right?
Oh yeah, born and raised.
Born and raised. And so where'd you go to high school?
It was Prairie View is what it was, up in Henderson. Yep.
Totally.
So,
right? So I finally got Broncos season tickets.
Nice.
About
all right,
3 years ago. It took me 18 years.
Jeez.
Rick is a huge Avs fan. He's got tickets. He's got pictures of our sticker on the ice for like a free skate workout and stuff.
What?
He's been to a bunch of playoff games, so it's just fun hanging out with people from Colorado.
Yeah.
But if you're not from Colorado, all that counts is you made it here.
Yeah.
It is all like you understand what we're about, going outside, having fun, and I think that's what this podcast is about. And what we're about is just having fun, being outside, and keeping that smile going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy you got the season tickets because I know people that have been waiting forever.
They're nosebleeds, but from 2002 to 2018.
Yep.
So 16 years. Yep. The whole time.
And then unfortunately you got them kind of at the,
the
most downturned spot.
Right after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Right.
But hey, it's an upswing right now.
Exactly.
Our boys are on a 5-game win streak as of the recording of this. So
no doubt.
We'll take that for sure.
Absolutely.
So finally we can, let Russ cook without the fear of the kitchen burning down. So
well, it's funny. I'll get texts from buddies like having a Locke and Co for good luck to win this game. It'll happen for Avs or Nuggets when they won the championship. Like pouring a little Locke and Co for good luck, and it brings good luck. Locke and Co gives you luck.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I like it. It's just, for whatever reason, I always go with something Colorado to drink whenever I'm watching, particularly once it hits like playoff time.
Totally.
For like the Avs playoff run, first game, or the Stanley Cup run, the first game I had, and I realize it's, they're owned by Budweiser, but Breckenridge Brewery is still a Colorado brewery.
Absolutely.
I had a Breckenridge Avalanche for that first game because I managed to score a ticket to it, and I was like,
oh, nice.
Let's go. Yep, so it's Nashville Predators. They blow them out. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not a really superstitious guy, but
it's
for whatever reason, I was like, you know what? I can't change that now. So I had to have a Breck Avalanche for every game.
Every game.
And,
I love it.
Hey, they brought the cup home that year, so.
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we were excited. We got a bottle of our whiskey on John Michael Lyle's wine shelf in the back, which was awesome.
If you follow me on Twitter,
because we had people sending us little pictures.
I had to pause the broadcast for that. I took the picture of it. I tagged John Michael Lyle's on. I'm like, hey, great choice of bottle to have up there. That's definitely a cool shout out because he's got some
good stuff.
He's got some nice bottles sitting on that shelf.
Shout out to Mark Rycroft, Sobo Liquors, big fans of ours. We're of him. You can go talk to Mark at his shop, and he's got great whiskey knowledge, Knows so much. Friendliest guy in the world. He's the best.
Riker's awesome.
Yeah.
He absolutely
And the
great.
suits.
Yep.
The suits.
Always looks sharp.
Always good.
The one time that he was in the store when I was there, like, again, just absolutely sharp, on point, totally set up, good to go.
Oh, yeah.
The store's really nice, too. Like,
So
it's real easy to walk through. It's packed to the gills, but without making you feel too closed in. So this is not an ad, by the way.
No,
like,
this is-
Riker's not paying us for this one. We just do like his store a lot.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
go check them out on South Broadway, Soho Liquors downtown. If you know about where Laws and Bear Creek are,
Yep.
just a little bit further south of that, and you'll find yourself at Soho.
That's right. Say hi to Laws and Bear Creek too.
Stop in there.
All
for
friends.
Sure.
It's all community in the whiskey world.
So we can kind of wrap it up on that note, because I feel like every Colorado distiller that I've ever talked to, like, you guys all seem to know at least most of one another.
Sure.
And the community and everything. There's obviously you're all on shelves, and technically, I feel like an outsider might look and be like, "Oh, you're competitors."
Yeah.
But you guys are. I mean, the distilling family is a family. It's crazy how
It's awesome.
well everybody gets along, and there's nobody in this business in Colorado that I would say is unfriendly, unapproachable. It's such a welcoming and fun environment.
It's such a fun industry to be a part of, and people help each other out with bottles, seals, labels. I mean, when COVID hit, things went crazy, right? So there's definitely a community involvement there, and it's like co-opetition.
Yep.
It's like the rising tide's going to float all Colorado.
Oh yeah.
People recognize Colorado's good in craft. If we're all good, it's going to help everybody. So
It really is.
it's a lot of fun for sure. And we're trying to do collaborations. We've done some with Balmer Peak. Looking to do one with Snitching Lady for like a fair play release. Like,
that'd be fantastic.
whoever wants to play and do stuff, we're open. So if you're listening, reach out. We'll do something fun.
We'll get that Snitching Lady one, and we'll get the Aspen stave up to Kicking Ass Mountain
Yeah,
Pizza.
that's right. Well,
we'll go a full fair play
I love
Aspen
it. The
whiskey
pod.
pizza release. I love the idea.
That's happening. That's like June this year. It's on.
Hey man,
Summertime.
I'm gonna keep
Let's
my
go.
eyes out for
I
it.
love it.
Let's
Love it.
definitely do it. So awesome. Well, Owen, thank you again so much for joining us. This has been an absolute blast. Is there anything else you want to put out to?
No. Stay safe. Have fun with the whiskey, and thank you, Zach.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Appreciate
again for coming on, and for everybody listening, watching at home, all this. Again, my name is Zach. This is a Colorado Craft Podcast. Thank you all for joining us. If you aren't already, obviously follow Locke and CO on all the
Please.
social media platforms. Find out about releases, find out about whiskeys, and just generally good content. And
Sign up for the email. Best way. Get you the good, new, as quick as possible.
Get it right away, directly to your inbox. And speaking of which, sign up for the Mile High Bourbon email as well. Just recently launched that. I do have some exciting news coming down the pipeline. I know I keep teasing it. I'm just waiting for the final confirmation, and then that'll come out. So follow us on social media at Mile High Bourbon, basically everywhere. Just search Mile High Bourbon and Rye. Check us out. And as always, thank you all for joining us and listening to another episode of the Colorado Craft Podcast. Cheers.
Cheers.